Welcome to your last Thursday, before your last Thursday, at school, or having school rather, in 2020. It's your last Thursday before the last Thursday. It's pretty crazy stuff. All right. We also have a test coming up next week for Unit 3. Are you doing everything that you need to master this material? The test will tell us. And if not, we still got time. Just really focus, really work hard on those challenge questions, and really work hard on watching me go over the challenge questions. That'll help you, and it'll help you a lot because I choose the challenge questions, and I pick the challenge questions that are going to help you on the test. Okay? Okay. Speaking of challenge questions, here they are. We have 11 divided by 3. This one's my favorite. Whenever you have a division problem that does not have a fraction, always try this. Sometimes it'll give you the answer. Slice 11 thirds. Well, it gives us the answer. However, the answer is just not complete yet because 11 thirds, as you are well aware, it's larger than a whole. How many thirds does it take to make a whole? 3 thirds. I have 11. How many 3s are in 11? Let's see. 3, 6, 9, 12. 3 of them's 9. So when I pull out 9 thirds, it's really equal to 3 wholes. So therefore, this equals 3 wholes. Now, is that perfectly 3 wholes? No. Why? Because it's not perfectly 9 thirds. There's 2 more than 9 thirds. 9, 10, 11, right? So there's 2 thirds left. So 11 thirds is the same as 3 and 2 thirds. And yesterday I had you do, actually I'll have you do it here. Sometimes I have you take the improper fraction and go to a mixed number. And sometimes we have to take the mixed number and go to the improper fraction. So your answer is 3 and 2 thirds. But let's just pretend I had 3 and 2 thirds and said, okay. And I say, okay, find the improper fraction. And we didn't know this was the improper fraction. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11. 11 thirds, okay? So that's how you go back and forth. But this answer is 3 and 2 thirds. You always want to have your final answer as a mixed number. The only reason we would take a mixed number and turn it into an improper fraction is if we have to multiply first. You can't multiply a mixed number, so you have to turn it into an improper fraction, then multiply, and then turn it back. All right, so that answer is 3 and 2 thirds. I don't even know if I should do this. 3 and 2 thirds. This is usually when I get into trouble when I try to write with my mouse. All right, 2/5 of 5. 2/5 of means multiply 5. Well, remember, in order to multiply, you have to only have numerators and denominators. I'm pretty much there, except for I have nothing under the 5. It's 5 wholes, so I put a 1 under it. Now you ask yourself, okay, I can either multiply over, or if I find an area I can reduce first, I'm allowed to reduce first. When you reduce, it has to be a top and a bottom number. See how they're both 5s? Oh my gosh, reduce them. How many 5s make 5? 1. How many 5s make 5? 1. So this problem turned into, this entire problem just turned into, get a better color, 2 over 1, because that 5 turned into a 1, times 1 over 1. See how much easier that is than 2/5 times 5 over 1? Yet it'll be the same answer. This one will just be smaller. 2 over 1. What is 2 over 1? That answer is just 2. 2 over 1 is equal to 2. What is 5 1/3 as an improper fraction? 5 1/3 as an improper fraction. So we have 5 and we have 1/3, and we want to turn it into an improper fraction. Remember, an improper fraction means you have no whole number, you You only have the fraction. And if you only have the fraction, we got to turn this into these. 1 whole is worth how many thirds? 3 thirds. But I don't have 1. I have 5. So I multiply. 3 thirds, 3 thirds, 3 thirds, 3 thirds, and 3 thirds. 15 thirds. So this is equal to 15 thirds. But remember, I don't just have 5. I also have 1 third. So 15 thirds plus 1 third is 16 thirds. So 15 plus 1 is 16, 16 thirds. So that answer is 16 thirds. Now this challenge question might look familiar to you guys because it was on yesterday's homework that I didn't make you do. It says, quick thinking, you just entered a game show and you are allowed to win. On yesterday's assignment, it said albums or downloads or something, which no one even does anymore because you buy streaming services. So I altered it a little bit. And I said, it's worth money. Okay, so you're like, boom, you win money. You win N money, which is confusing to you guys because you haven't worked with algebra yet. But N just means it's whatever number that is, whatever number you get, you plug in there. So if I say N equals 5 today, you win 5. Which one would you rather have? Would you rather have 5 divided by a third or 5 times a third? Now, in this question, I just asked you 2 different ways. First, I said, which one would you rather have? Whatever the N is, the money that's given to you, would you rather have it divided by a third or multiplied by a third? And this is really checking to see if you understood yesterday's lesson. Yesterday's lesson, we talked about when you divide by a fraction, it doesn't get smaller. When you divide by a fraction, it gets bigger. And when you multiply by a fraction, it gets smaller. This is multiplying by a fraction. So it would actually make whatever N is smaller. And this, you divide by a fraction. So whatever N is, it would make it bigger. So so your answer is you'd rather divide by a third. And then it said, if N equals 12, how much money would you win with each of the formulas? So let's first say N is 12, so we'll plug 12 in for N and divide by a third. So 12 divided by a third. Ooh, we're dividing by a fraction. How do we do that? We don't. We keep, change, flip. Keep, change, flip. So I'm going to rewrite this with the keep, change, flip. You keep 12 the same. You change the sign, and you flip 1/3, and it turns into 3/1. Okay? And then 12 is 12/1. I didn't flip it. That's just what it is. Now we multiply across. 12 times 3 is 36. And 31 times 1 is 1. So 36/1 is 36. So if you divide, your 12 turns into $36. That's good. If you multiply, you take a third of 12. So you take your 12 and you multiply it by a third. And that's a lot smaller, right? 12 times 1 is 12, and 3 times 1 is 3. How many 3s are in 12? 4. So that turns into a 4. You could have simplified here instead. 4 times 1 is 4. Either way, that one's 4. That's not 12. What am I doing? What did I do wrong? Oh, 4. Why did I say 12? Ay, señorita. 4. So that answer is 4. All right, so those are the challenge questions. I hope you guys understand them, and I hope you didn't fast forward me. But if you did, you wouldn't hear me say this, so let's move on. All right, I highlighted the ones I want to work on now, and then the evens we will try to get through on the Zoom, and then whatever's not gotten through will be HW. So it says first, just decide which operation to use, and then solve. Okay, so Hala can ride her bike 7.5 miles in 1 hour. How far will she go in 3 hours? So we want 7.5, 7.5, 7.5. How far will she go in 1/3 of an hour? Ooh, we only want 1/3 of 7.5. Both of them are multiplication. So first, let's say 7.5 times 3. We have to turn these both into fractions, right? 7 is a mixed number. 7.5 is a mixed number, so we want to turn it all into halves. 7.5 would be 14 halves, 15 halves. And then 3 would just be 3 over 1. See how it was multiplication? Do we need to flip anything? No. Everyone always wants to get flip crazy after they learned about keep, change, flip. You only do that when it's division because we don't want to divide. So there's no flipping here. You don't flip anything. Now we multiply across. We can simplify first. There's nowhere to reduce here. There's nothing you can reduce. So 15 times 3 is 45. And 2 times 1 is 2. How many 2's are in 45? Well, 22 times 2 is 44. So 22 is 44, but we have 45. So there's a half left. So that answer is 22.5. And if you didn't know that, you can divide like this. 45 divided by 2. 2 goes into 4 twice. There's nothing left over because it went in crisp and clean. And then 2 goes into 5 twice. And that was 4, so there's 1 left over. So it's 22.5. And then what is 1/3 of 7.5? 1/3, oh, hold on. So 22.5 is that answer. 22.5. And then what's 1/3 of 7.5? So same thing. It's already multiplication, so that's good. But we have to turn them both so they can fit in Mr. Krabs' eyes, right? You can only multiply numerators and denominators. Well, 1/3 is already like that. Do we have to flip anything? No, because it's already multiplication. 7.5. We have to turn 7.5 into just an improper fraction. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 1 is 15, so that turns into 15 halves. What's bigger, 7.5 or 15 halves? They're the same thing. Now, some of you guys are getting good at reducing. You're like, look at Mr. Stahl, 15 and 3. You can count by 3's for both of them. That would make this 1, because it takes 1 3 to make 3. That would turn this into a 5, because it takes 5 3's to make 15. This makes your problem just a little easier. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. How many 2's are in 5? 2. What's left over? 1/2. So 2.5. So that answers 2.5. So you can see how much further she went in 3 hours than only in 1/3 of an hour. All right. We'll do 2 later. Number 3, Mr. Dayton used 8 cups of flour to make 3 identical loaves. How much flour did he use in each loaf? Ooh, multiplication or division? Multiplication or division? If you said division, you're right. He used 8 cups of flour for 3. 8 total made 3. He wants to figure out what each one got from his 8. So we are going to take 8 and divide it by 3. Order totally matters when you're dividing. So 8 is what you have. 3 is what you're splitting it between. So 8 divided by 3. Now, is there a fraction in here? No. So we do not keep, change, flip because there's no fraction that we're working with. So we're going to get out the sword and we're going to slice it. Boom. Answer staring at us in the face, 8/3. Now, are we done or do we have to divide a little bit to figure out the real answer? We do have to divide a little bit. How many 3's are in 8? 2, right? 3, 6, we can't go up to 9. So there's 2 holes hidden there. And then that took 6 away, so there's still 2 more. 2 more what? 2 more 1/3. So that answer is 2 2/3. And I should be labeling these, except for it would take me an hour with my mouse to label these bad boys. So if I'm labeling them, it's 2 2/3 cups of flour, right? Up here, it's 22.5 miles, 2 1/2 miles. Kim bought 3/8 pounds of sunflower seeds and 3/16 pounds of thistle. Reminds me of a show my kids watch with King Thistle. I forget what the name of the show is. Ben and Holly's Magical Kingdom. Something like that. Anyways, let's get back to it. Kim bought 3/8 pounds of sunflower seeds and 3/16 pounds of thistle seed. For her bird feeder, how much seed did she buy total? Multiplication or division? Oh, tricky. It's not multiplication or division. What is it? It's addition. We're adding two different seeds together to make total amount of seed. So 3/8 plus 3/16. I almost forgot that you always write these up and down. Always write these up and down. So we have 3/8 plus 3/16. The first thing I gotta do is say my name, say my name. Beyonce, I haven't talked to you in a while. Sorry. 8 and 16, the first thing they both will turn into is 16. How many 8s make 16? Times 2. Do it to the bottom, do it to the top. That turns into 6/16. This is just multiplied by 1. Now, if it's been a long time since you added fractions, you see how you're already starting to be like, oh my gosh, I forgot that. I forgot that. Your brain kind of wants to multiply. That's why I've always stressed to you, make sure you're adding and subtracting up and down, because it helps you kind of distinguish between the two different things. So we have 6/16 plus 3/16. Answer's 9/16. And you can look at that for a while. Maybe 3 can go into it, but then you realize 3 cannot go into 16. That is simplified. So 9/16 is your answer. So almost a whole pound. 9/16 of a pound of seed. All right. Predict and solve. So just over here, I'm gonna put the symbol, because I'm going to want to do that for these too. This was multiply. This was divide. This was add. I know you think you know what the next pattern is. We'll see. Marcus studied for 9 hours each week. His friend Lewis spends 5/6 as much time as him studying. Who studies for more? How much does Lewis spend studying? Well, first, what operation is going to help us with this? If you said division, you're wrong. It's multiplication. You're going to figure out what 5/6 of 9 is. You're going to try to figure out what 5/6 of 9 is. So, first of all, if Lewis is like, ooh, I'm 5/6 of 9, is that more or less than 9? That's 5/6 is only a fraction of 9. So Marcus spends more time. So maybe you should, without your mouse, write Marcus there. And then the next part, we got to figure out how long Lewis spends. So 5/6 of 9. 5/6 of 9. Remember, we have to make 9 a fraction because we're multiplying numerators and denominator. Do we flip anything? No, because it already is multiplication. If you understand reducing, you understand that 6 and 9 can be reduced. If you don't understand reducing, well, then you're going to multiply across and you're going to get 45/6. And that can get reduced. While you're over there reducing it, I'm going to do what I would have done in the beginning. I would have said, oh, we can make these smaller. They can both be counted by threes. That would be 2 threes. That would be 3 threes. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 1 is 2. I'm going to figure this one out while you're figuring that one out. How many 2's are in 15? 7. What's left over? 1/2. Up here, 6, 12. What's after 12? 18, and then 24, and then 30, and then 36, and then 42. That's 7. Oh, yeah, of course it's 7, because they're equal to each other. 7, what's left over? 3, because it was 72, 6. What's 72 equal, or what's 7 and 3 6 equal to? 7.5. I like this way better. That's why I always tell you guys reduce first. You can do whatever way you want, but it's really helpful to reduce first. So 7.5 hours. And then you can put Marcus studied more. Moving on. All right. Now we are going to say, did we forget how to do anything? I hope not. Let's show that we didn't. Start with number 9. 7 divided by 1/3. 7 divided by 1/3 is the same thing as 7 times 3 equals. Whoa, 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 whoa. Skirt. How did you know that? Well, I talked to the colonel. Whenever you're dividing with any kind of a fraction, you have to keep change flipping. You keep the 7 the same, you change the sign from division to multiplication, and then you flip 1/3. 1/3 flipped is 7 or 3 over 1, and 3 over 1 is just 3, right? It's 3 wholes. 7 times 3 is 21. So that answer is 21. And I hope you're not just, oh, he's writing the answer. Cool, let's write it down. Because none of that matters, right? This is practice. This is getting you stronger. So you're watching this video to get it, not to write it down on your paper. I'm hoping you're writing it down on your paper, but that's not the goal here, right? That's not the goal. So let's move over to subtraction. And now that you know that this video only has a couple minutes left, if you guys have a lot of time until I Zoom with you at 10:30 or 9, what time? No, 10:30, then pause it. Try to get these answers yourself and then look to see if you got it. Or if you don't have time right now, this is great practice later. Rewatch this video and then you know which ones I'm going to complete. So pause it, try to get the answer yourself, and then unpause it and see if you got the same answer as me. You will forget about the real answers by tonight. So don't be like, oh, I already watched it. This doesn't count. No, no, no. This is great practice. Watch it. Write down the answer on a piece of paper, and then watch me get the answer, and hopefully it's just the right one. That's the best way I've ever learned. 4th, 7th minus 1/3. I'm writing them up and down because it's subtraction. And the first thing I got to do is give them the same name. 7 and 3, what's the first name that they both have in common? 21. How many 7s make 21? 3. Do it to the bottom, do it to the top. That turns into a 12 over 21. This magic number is 7. How do I know? Because it takes 7 3s to make 21. Do it to the bottom, do it to the top, 7. This is our new problem. 12 over 21 minus 7 over 21. Well, what's the difference between 12 and 7? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 5 left. So your answer is 5 over 21. Number 13, 2/5 of 5.5. 2/5 of 5.5. 2/5 of 5.5. So if you remember correctly, what we have to do now SpongeBob. We got to put them in Mr. Krabs' eyeballs. 2/5 is 2/5. That fits in his eyeballs perfect. but 5½ does not. So how many halves is 5½? So yesterday at my parents', my brother ate a half of a cookie, and there were 9 cookies, and my son goes, "Dad, there's 8½ cookies left." And I said, "Buddy, how many halves is that?" And he told me, he goes, 17. There's 17 halves. And that's just like here. So what did he do? He took each cookie and realized that there were 2 halves. So he multiplied the amount of cookies by 2, and then he added the leftover half. That's what you do here. 5 wholes is 10 halves, plus 1 is 11 halves. Now we just multiply across. Do I flip? No. Why do I not flip? Because it was already in multiplication. You only flip when you're turning from division and you want it to be multiplication. 2 times 11. Oh, wait. You can I was just about to say you can't reduce here, but they're both 2s. So if you used 2s and counted by 2s, they would turn into 1s, right? Using $2 bills, they would each be 1 bill. 1 times 11 is 11. 5 times 1 is 5. How many 5s are in 11? 2. That would be 10, and there's 1/5 left over. So your answer there is 2 1/5. And then we have 2 more, and then we are finished until our Zoom. 3 1/2, or what? 3 1/3 minus 1 3/4. 3 1/3 minus 1 3/4. Remember, when I first taught this to you, I told you, hey, you can kind of separate the 2 like that, so it's not as confusing. And then put a box under the names so you know that those are just their names. And you have 1/3, and you have 3/4. First thing you got to do is turn them into the same name. 3 and 4, the first thing they both have in common, the first multiple, first thing they can both count to is 12. This can count to 12. This can count to 12. How many 3s make 12? 3, 6, 9, 12. 4. So the magic number, the exchange rate, is 4. And 1 times 4 is 4. How many 4s make 12? 4, 8, 12. 3. Do it to the bottom. Do it to the top. That turns into a 9. Now, I have 4. I lose 9. And I'm going to jail because you cannot take 9 from 4. So we got to go up here and break up one of these holes. We're going to take that hole and turn it into what we need more of. We need more 12s. So that hole is going to be broken into 12s. How many 12s is it worth? 12 12s, because 12 12s is a hole. So now I can give 12 more to 4. So now I have 16 12s. Why? Because I have 12 12s from when I broke the hole into, and 4 12s. 12 plus 4 is 16. 16 minus 9. Now I can take 9 away. 7 12s. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So that answer is 1 and 7 12s. Same thing. If you got lost there, pause it, redo it until you get the same answer as me. Yes, you know the answer, but that's not what's important. What's important is you know the process of getting the answer. And then the last one we're going to do together is 1/9 divided by 3. 1/9 divided by 3. Well, let's make sense out of this. 3 is how many people are splitting it. 1/9 is what you're starting with, because the first number in division is what you're starting with. So that's like having 1/9 of a large pizza, and then 3 people got to split it. They're going to get tiny pieces, right? So the answer is definitely get smaller than 1/9. We have division with fractions. No, Kentucky Fried Chicken. KFC. Keep, change, flip. Keep 1/9 the same. Change the sign and flip it. Remember what 3 actually is. 3 is 3 over 1. That didn't flip it. That's just what it is. So now flipping it, it turns into 1/3. 1 times 1 is 1. 9 times 3 is 27. Is this smaller than the 1/9? Yes, it is. So that makes sense. That's your answer. I hope the video was helpful, because this is your math lesson. And then we will meet in Zoom and try to rock out the rest of these questions. And what we don't get to will be homework. All right. See you guys in a little bit.